Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts. Jody McPherson, welcome to the conversation today.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from the Denver area. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about the impact of AI on entry-level work. This is a super interesting topic to me. I'm an HR guy. I am a professor. I teach HR in the university space. And of course, I do consulting work with organizations as well. And disruptive technologies generally, automation more specifically, and AI, advanced robotics more specifically still. This is keeping people up at night. This is really concerning people in terms of job displacement. People are really concerned. And generally speaking, I would say, a lot of these concerns, I think, are ill-conceived. I don't think we're going to see like huge amounts of like tremendous displacement in the near future. But just like other types of innovation, yes, there will be displacement over time. We will have to see reskilling and upskilling, just like we have seen at any other point in time as there's been new innovations. But when it comes to entry-level work, it's a really interesting conversation. And since I'm a university professor and I'm preparing students to go into the workforce, this is something I'm particularly interested in. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you and to unpack this a little bit. As we get started, I wanted to share Jody's bio with everybody. Jody McPherson is a visionary and experienced leader in the EdTech and talent sourcing space with over 25 years of building and launching innovative SaaS business models. As the CEO and co-founder of WorkSimpler, she has created a next-generation freelance platform that connects companies with qualified students for on-demand fractional paid work, simplifying the hire and education process for both parties. I think that's fantastic. Anything else you would like to add by way of your background or personal context or that of your company before we dive on in?
Yeah, I mean, this is very near and dear to my heart. I worked in ed tech for most of my entire career, 30 plus years. And there are options and solutions. And so we're both profit and purpose in how we think about things, but really getting to underrepresented students while businesses get productivity. So really shifting the landscape of how we think about productivity and hiring.
So let's dive on in and talk about it. Like, how do we get students more paid relevant experience leading into their first entry level full-time jobs? I think that's a big piece of this, right? So you have kind of the traditional student, they leave high school, they go into college, 18-year-old student, they go through 4 years of university. They're now leaving the university space, 22-ish years old, maybe a little bit of part-time experience, but not a lot of work experience. How ready are they for the workforce, especially in this day and age where there's all this disruptive technology? That's a big question for a lot of employers. And frankly, a lot of employers are saying they're not that ready, right? Now, there's a big caveat to that, and that is that we have a lot of non-traditional students. The landscape of higher ed is shifting dramatically. And so, I'm at a university, for example, where, only a fraction of our student population is that traditional student that I just described. So, we have a wide variety of different types of students that we serve. And I think that's true, increasingly true of universities across the United States. But the point being still that a lot of students coming out of university may not have a lot of relevant work experience. So how do we embed more of that experience into that experience into the university time frame so that they can come out a little bit more, may I say, shovel ready, like a little bit more ready to hit the ground running? Thoughts on what we can do to give students more paid relevant experience during the process of their education?
Yeah, I love that you called it a university timeframe. I think there's a couple things I want to kind of share with that. Like, there are several groups, and I think these are positive, who believe that they can embed work type of experience as projects at the end of a class. I think there's value in that, so I wouldn't stop doing that. But I don't think that replaces being on the hook for paid productivity. And at the same time, post-COVID internships have not rebounded, right? So there's not enough
Yeah.
internships. And even with internships, those are great. And they're more of an audition for a student and less about productivity for the business. So they're not all structured super well.
Mhm.
So what we try to do is just we came in later and we said if we could start from the beginning, what would we do? And what students want is paid short-term work. They don't want long-term commitments. It's hard for them to get the swing of longer-term commitments while they're in school. So that bodes well for short paid commitments. They also need flexibility, right? I need to be able to work at night. I need to be able to work during the day or on my classes. That's another piece. They also need work that they understand how to do, right? They need a really good process, really good training on the task. And what we find when we do those things, they do very good work. They
Yeah.
commit on time or ahead of time. And the quality goes way up, which has always been a risk with students. So we've kind of mitigated those risks on the student side. And from a work standpoint, from a company standpoint, instead of asking a company to commit to a full internship program or more full-time work or put the effort onto a hiring manager or somebody in their company that doesn't really know how to work with a student, we said give that to us. If you give us a set of work or projects, we will productize it and then we will
Mm.
distribute it against students. And what we do is we break it into 4-week sprints. And then if we need 10 students, we hire 10. If we need 60, we hire 60. And we have automation tools to help manage that. We feel that's the best way for, and I have 2 students, right? We feel that's one of the best ways for them to get real work because now it's chunked up, it's stackable. They could work for 4 weeks as a BDR, they could work for 4 weeks in online research, and they've got real skills they can put on their resume. They can articulate their skills because another big piece of this is once a student completes something, how do they articulate what they've done? And so we provide them the verbiage as well as a credential so that when they're putting it on LinkedIn or wherever, or they're talking in an interview, they can talk about it. So some of it is
Mhm.
unpacking the task and productivity needs for a business, matching it, aligning it with one or more students, and bringing visibility to the process for both parties, right? And then the student understands how to take it with them. The flex nature of what we do, we've served over 3,000 students at an average of $300 per project. And about 35% of those are repeat students, meaning when they have time, they come in and look for something. When they don't, they go away. And it's so much easier for us to navigate. We push the jobs out and the work out to students. They don't have to be scouring a job board. So these more
Mhm.
traditional things of scouring job boards, updating your resume on every single link, looking for fractional or contract work. Some students don't even know what that is. Although I'll say about
Yeah.
50% of Gen Z does freelance in some capacity. We just are trying to get rid of the risks and the traditional pieces that aren't working anymore, right? If you're a student and you want to get freelance work and you go to Upwork, I would say good luck, right? Upwork is wonderful, but it's also several 100,000 people, right? It's very difficult for a student to get that kind of experience. So we kind of look at ourselves like single double A ball and that their full-time job is like, going to the major leagues in baseball, but they need the repetition and practice of these work experiences to see what they're good at, what they like, get paid, keep them in short chunks. 4 weeks makes it very doable that they can do it. We're not punitive. If someone falls out for something, we just replace it. So like when we hire,
Mhm.
say that you hired us, and we needed 5 people, we'd have a bench of 3 people ready to go. So that if someone drops out, we can slot someone in. So we're pretty much reducing risk at every turn for both sides so they can get the experience, get the money, get the productivity, and all in about 4 weeks.
That's really cool. And it's interesting that you mentioned, platforms like Upwork. There are several platforms like that, right? And they're
Oh,
really
wow.
cool. They're great
Yeah.
platforms. And I've suggested them to students in the past. But like you said, they're so saturated. Like there's just so many people on them. And so, especially for someone just starting out, where you
Mhm.
don't have any sort of track record, it can be hard to get those first clients, right? And
Yeah.
so just getting your foot in the door, getting those first people, it can be really hard. Having something like what you're describing is really a safe space. It's a place to just get some experience. And like you said, you're mitigating those risks of
Yep.
working with students for organizations that want that freelance work. So sounds like a no-brainer. Excellent. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more too about the remote work aspect of all of this. So obviously with freelance work, remote is really, really important. certainly freelance work can happen in non-remote kind of environments, and it has for forever, right? For decades. But in the remote world, in with technology enhanced remote connectivity, it just increases the ability for us to really have anyone anywhere do freelance work for us. Can you talk us through that and really what you've seen post COVID in relation to how organizations are connecting with freelancers?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's one of the bigger risks now. Post COVID, remote became very acceptable. I think,
Hmm.
businesses, as you know, are looking at how do I get people back in the office. The thing about freelancing and remote is it requires a level of discipline on both parties to execute. And I think that's again another place where we try to mitigate risk, meaning you don't have the latitude and luxury of just going down the hall and talking to someone. So this adds a greater risk with freelancers who you don't know and don't know you, that are you getting what you want? How frequently do you check in? What do those check-ins look like? Are you seeing work as it's progressing? And the short answer to many of that when we did our research is no, right? So it's kind of a hope for the best, not plan and proceduralize things for the best because people are inexperienced with remote. Now as people get more experienced, that's going to get better, but it's still a big risk. And so what we do by incorporating the process that we have is we try to bring great visibility to the students of what they're doing. We have automated check-ins. In any 4-week process, there might be 7 check-ins. And then we have weekly check-ins with the company. And in those check-ins, it's more than just a dashboard of progress. It's about how are things working, progress. Should we make a tweak? Should we employ a few more students on this to make sure we hit our deadline? And the thing I find with remote work is that productivity is the risk because you've got a communication kind of breakdown on
Hmm.
both sides. And on top of that communication, and I'm not saying it's a breakdown because people aren't trying. I just don't think we know how. Like I've learned a lot working remote of what do I expect when I go to weekly meetings? Do I set an agenda? How much time do I have? What do I expect the
Hmm.
person who comes to the meeting to bring to the table versus just okay, 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 And these are little nuances, but they can make or break you in a remote world. And if done well, you can really capitalize on remote work and flexible remote work, right? Where it's not even 9 to 5. It could be, oh, I go to school, I'm going to do it 5 to 10 at night. No big deal if you've got the right kind of check-ins, the right type of project management approach. And but I think the risk is very high. And this is what I find people, myself included, when I was at Pearson, I misunderstood how risky it was. Like I thought I had the talent. Great, let's go. I'll just get it done. And getting it done may take 6 months, not 6 weeks, right? And I might
Hmm.
need more than one person. So what we're trying to do is educate and be that liaison in a way that highlights and flags things that are working or not. And that expertise is really what people who use Work Simpler, in addition to getting their work done, they're paying for. Because who has the time to learn how to manage remote new workers to an organization is very, very difficult.
Not only are they new to remote work, but they're new to work, generally speaking, right?
Correct. Yep.
So that's extra challenging. Okay, so let's talk more about this AI piece and specifically the impact of it on new entry
Yeah.
level work and what you're doing, how that's
Yeah.
impacting this, right? So the displacement piece, this is how I introduced the whole
Mhm.
discussion today. Uh, Displacement is going to happen. We are going to replace certain types of routinized, repetitive work. In large part, I think that's just a good thing. Most people don't want to be doing the mindless repetitive types of things that can be replaced by a robot or by a software or by an algorithm. And I know personally, if there's things like that that I do, I would love to not have to do those things anymore. As a professor, I would love to not have to do the more tedious parts
Sure.
of grading, for example. That would be amazing if I could just focus on like the coaching and the mentoring and the substantive feedback that I can give to students and not the tedious stuff
Mhm.
of feedback on a paper, right? While the students still can get the what they need to be able to improve. And that's where things like AI are super, super helpful and go across any profession, any job, any task. We're going to see those types of improvements. And so there will be task displacement. There will be some types of job displacement, but there will also be new types of jobs, new types of careers created that we haven't even thought about. And all of this I think is super exciting. Okay, now talking about entry level though, there are a lot of jobs that a lot of, new college graduates would go into that involved a lot of those repetitive types of tasks that now are going to be done by AI or advanced softwares, deep machine learning types of stuff. So, what does the world of work look like if, a student coming out of university can't land those types of jobs anymore?
I we have a kind of a pretty strong point of view on AI. I think AI, much like the PC, is an evolutionary, kind of like the internet, kind of an evolutionary injection into our society, into work. And by that, I mean, it's going to have a profound effect. I think the thing that I've found is that some people think it's going to replace more than displace, if you will, things. And here's what we're finding. Eric, our COO, and I have several certifications in AI. We continue to dig into the AI landscape. There are pieces of entry-level jobs that could be done more effectively with AI, for sure.
Yeah.
That said, the talent has to understand how to leverage the AI tool, right? Let's use conversational AI as an example. There's so much that can be done with that in hiring, interviewing, HR tech, meetings, remote work, on and on, product requirements and so forth. There's so much. It still requires a human interaction to leverage it. And so what we're trying to do is kind of two things. We think of AI in two ways. Like, how will it augment what's currently happening in entry-level roles? So we literally have gone through job descriptions across industries and said, what if I start an entry level, what is going to be augmented by AI first? What's not going to be touched? And what
Mm.
skills do I need in order to accelerate that AI? Because as we know, if you put garbage into AI, you get garbage out. Like that
Yeah.
is just, it's a universal truth pretty much for any kind of research. And so one of the big things has to do with prompt engineering,
Hmm.
structurally setting up, AI with prompt engineering to give you the results that you want, having an ability to cross-check AI. I mean, AI can tell you where we've been and it can try to predict where we're going. But if we're using AI for organic list research, for example, or market research, there's a high risk of error. So we believe that AI can augment it with some organic and a human interaction. And could it save time? Yes. Could it add time? Yes. So what we're trying to do is help people understand the various aspects of entry level work and actually break it down and say, this is where AI could really be helpful. And in that case, we even offer matching students and AI to solve certain problems, right? Getting people out of the traditional hiring methodology and staffing methodology. I mean, you're in HR, job descriptions are very old, very outdated,
Yeah.
and there's a lot to be gained if we can figure out how to make entry level work more palatable and to understand the skills. For example, problem formulation versus problem solving in an AI world is almost double, right? Understanding how to frame the problem for AI, and that's nowhere to be found in entry level work. They assume they're going to give direction to someone to complete the work, but the reality is that person not only has to know AI, they have to know what problem they're formulating to give it the correct prompts and then do the refinement. So those nuances are not going to get solved overnight, and there's a great appetite for people to use it. And so what we're doing is we look at how can we be a part of that ecosystem, right? How can we help people advance their conversational AI to really save them time, to train their people, to train their staff, right? Because most people will not come in with AI training. I mean, I just read an article in Forbes, 2,000 new entries in the past 6 months to AI HR tools alone, right?
Yeah.
So there's
Hmm.
a role to be played, and that's where we're going to lean on our training and our ability to proceduralize things just around entry level work, right? Because like we call one of our big gap areas data manipulation, but that could be data cleansing, it could be data organizing from different sources into one, it could be data mining, it could be online research, right? It could be data research. There's all these things, and they're somewhat universal to verticals, but everybody needs data. Nobody wants their entry level people to spend, 40 hours a day or 40 hours a week doing that. Could they spend 30 and have more time, analyzing the data? That would be ideal, or serving the data up for somebody to do the analysis. So I think I think it all sounds good, but the bottom line is we really have to be efficient in it. And anybody who, at least in the data component of entry level work, it needs to be accurate. There is no room for inaccuracy in that data. And AI is a little bit to a lot of a risk. And there's things that can be done in conjunction. So we like the HI, human intelligence, with AI intelligence. And what we do is break down the entry level work. Now, this, as you know, the job descriptions and the jobs, while they've changed a lot, they probably in the entry level have not changed a whole lot. And that's something that we believe we can help. I mean, even if we generate lists, which we've done for a number of companies for their salespeople, that changes the BDR role. Then they're now out hunting the same way, right? That could substantially save them 10 hours a week. That's a huge advantage to be out there working on business versus hunting and trying to use, an AI tool that's giving you inaccurate information. So I think there's a lot of positive that will come, but I think that we have to be patient and understand, well, what kind of skills make an entry-level person efficient with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. There's tons of risk with the accuracy piece. And I think sometimes people just really forget that. I mean, can it save you tons of time? Yes, but not if you get inaccurate information and then you spend more time trying to hunt down what's wrong or trying to fix what's
That's right.
wrong.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
and I think there's been so many examples of that. and
Yeah,
and there's also been, like, in the HR space, like you said, there's so many tools, and there's new tools, and there's new tools built upon large language models that come out weekly. It's
yeah.
hard to keep on
And
top of them.
updates to the tools, right? I mean,
Updates to the tools, and there's a lot of bias built into these. So any of the HR tools, for example, like you utilize for selection,
mhm,
employee selection, it's a black box. I mean, so
yeah,
what's going in to training these models for how you're actually choosing employees going through the selection process,
yeah.
and it's leading to lawsuits. Like, are you actually going about an unbiased process to choose people and to get the best possible employee for your organization?
Yeah.
And the answer is we don't know. I mean,
Maybe,
honestly, we
right?
just don't know, because it's a black box and because there's just so much bias built in via the training of the models. Um,
Yeah, I think
so-
the other piece on the AI is that it's not an absolute, right? I think the people who say to me, it's definitely going to do this. And I'm like, okay, hold on a second. Let's tease that out. And so we've just chosen to focus on two areas of entry level work: user research and data research, and becoming expertise in that because we know everyone's going to need that. Doesn't go away. The work doesn't go away because AI is here. It just is different. And that's where you were getting at in the beginning. And I think if we can help people connect to underrepresented students in a hiring way, right? Short term, lower risk, lower cost, then we start to tease out, can we help you in a longer term way by really digging into your job descriptions and the tasks at hand that, at least at an entry level, haven't really been revisited for a long time, but need to be.
Well, this has just been a really fun conversation, Jody. I know at the time I need to let you go. Before we wrap things up, I just wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Yeah, thank you. Jody, Jodi at WorkSimpler, WORKSIMPLR.net, .com. And our website, worksimpler.com, to find us. A final word is I'm an AI fan, and but I'm also a fan of helping unpack what that really means for productivity. I think the biggest opportunity for us moving forward is productivity with short-term talent. I think that if we can figure that out in this world, we help businesses stay afloat. We help companies figure out ways to reach talented students and people while leveraging AI before they make an all-in big hiring decision, right? It's just that we want to be a part of the ecosystem that doesn't currently exist, which is an all-in ecosystem. And we're kind of saying, hey, if you unpack it, we think we can help. We can help in a little ways, but AI could probably be much more efficient for you if you really dig in and understand it.
Jody, thank you so much. It's just been a pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, to get connected, find out more about what Jody and her team can do for you. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.